The shelf life of pins on Pinterest is so much longer than the shelf life of pins on, or sorry, not pins, but posts on Facebook or Twitter. A study that we've looked at in the past showed that, Facebook posts last about 80 minutes, tweets are 5 to 25 minutes, and then a Pinterest post is at least a week. It can be years old and still be showing up in those search results and getting those repins way after you pin it. And I've had content that's gone viral 2 years after I pinned it.
That was Melissa Megginson, and we are talking about how to master Pinterest scheduling on episode 53 of the Chopped podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley. Thanks for joining me today for the 53rd episode of the Chopped podcast. As you know, this is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. Each week, my goal is to share with you thoughts, stories, interviews, everything related to food blogging so that we can all learn together about what works with food blogging and maybe even a little bit about what doesn't. Do you ever feel overwhelmed with everything that's involved with being a food blogger? Sometimes it feels like an ocean of tasks in front of us. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it feels like there's so much that can be done in every single moment that it can be really overwhelming. And one of those things is scheduling your content to social media. I used to do this all manually. And in fact, I actually have talked to other people who do it manually, and everybody's different. Some people like to have a little bit more control over those kinds of things. However, just last year, I started using an app called Tailwind, and that app helps me schedule my pins, the content from my site to Pinterest. And it has made such a big difference in my productivity because I feel like even when I'm having one of those days where things aren't, maybe not as productive as I want it to be, I know that my content is getting out there in a way that I have already prearranged to have happen. So that's always nice. I feel like discovering these kinds of tools has really been helpful to me. It's almost like, an aha moment or maybe like a secret that's been out there in the blogging world that everybody else has been using and I hadn't been. I know not everybody uses them, which is one of the reasons I'm having this interview today. But I think it's kind of helpful to learn what other people are doing and to know about, different resources that are available. So I reached out to Melissa Megginson with Tailwind to share information about their tool Tailwind, and it's not a sponsored post or anything like that. It's really just, this is a tool I really like, and I thought it could be helpful for you to listen to them talk about the information that they provide bloggers and the resources and the tools, and it can be just part of your informative decision-making process. So if you're ready to nerd out a little bit on Pinterest and Pinterest scheduling, you are going to love today's episode. Also, Melissa and I talk about some topics that are a little controversial with food bloggers, like should you be deleting old pins? It's something I know that's kind of popular within the food blogging community to talk about that. And so I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that, if you've got some pros and cons to whether you should be in there deleting old pins or not. But there's a few things like that in there I think you'll find interesting. So let's get right to it. Get out those earbuds, turn up the volume, and let's talk about all things food blogging and so much more. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have Melissa Megginson with Tailwind on the show today. Melissa, welcome to the Chopped podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here because, first of all, I use Tailwind, so I'm really happy to have the chance to talk with you. And I also know it's something that a lot of bloggers have questions about, so I'm really looking forward to answering their questions. But first, I thought it'd be good to take a step back, and if you could share a little bit more about your background and how it is that you came to work for Tailwind.
Absolutely. I came to Tailwind sort of by pure luck. This was my first job out of college. I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I just applied to this, we were Pin League at the time. And I thought, I like Pinterest. Maybe I'll give this a shot. And talked to our two co-founders, Danny and Alex, who have incredible backgrounds. Danny used to work for Google, and Alex has been in the tech world for a long time. They're so knowledgeable, so amazing. And we're based in Oklahoma City, which is my hometown. So to have this opportunity open up to me, right out of college and be able to help build this company from, I believe we had 50 clients when I first started, and now we're up to more than 60,000 members. So it's been
Wow.
a wild ride these past few years.
Not a lot of tech startups in Oklahoma, huh?
It's growing, but we're no Austin or the Valley or anything. But
I like
keeping it
that though.
going.
You bring a different approach that way, I think.
Hopefully, yeah.
And did you say 60,000 members?
Yep, it's pretty
Wow.
crazy.
That is I mean, it's impressive, that kind of growth.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever would have gotten the opportunity to see this sort of growth in any other company.
Yeah,
I
that's
got
cool.
lucky.
And how many staff do you have there?
We have 7 in Oklahoma City, and then we also have a New York office, which I believe there's 4 or 5 up there.
That's cool. I love places that have remote offices too. I mean, anytime you got, I think, staff all over, it just gives you more approach, more
Hmm.
perspectives. It's
Oh,
good.
it's great. It's fun.
Yeah,
I love going to visit those guys, and I love when they come out here. So it's been a lot of fun.
great. So for those people who maybe don't already use Tailwind, could you describe a little bit about what it is?
Sure. So on our base level, we are a visual marketing tool. So we help people figure out what they're doing on Pinterest and Instagram and sort of how to best position themselves on those 2 platforms. We started first with Pinterest. The Instagram piece is a little bit newer, but our main product is pin scheduling. And so you can install our browser extension and pin it's sort of like the Pinterest pin it button, or you can schedule pins from around the web, including your website, have them go out at certain intervals over time, whenever your audience is actually active. And then once they've been published, you can track your analytics through repin growth, follower growth, images coming from your domain, all kinds of ways. And we're mostly just sort of trying to help our users become world-class marketers on these visual platforms.
It's so great because it seems like it brings all the tools of, what you say, like the marketing tools that you need to understand your social media reach into, one platform, and you can manage all your numbers there. And even comments, like, it brings a section
Mhm.
with comments that people have had on your pins all together in one place. It's nice.
Yeah, and it's so rare to see comments on Pinterest anyway that
I
when you
know.
do get them, you need to jump on that opportunity.
I get them a lot, but usually it's people wanting to be on my board.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. 9 times out of 10, that's all they are. So have you ever personally had a blog?
I haven't personally. It's, sort of a pipe dream for me, but I do run the Tailwind blog. It's been a little lackluster lately. We've been working on positioning ourselves a little bit differently with the blog, but it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy running it. We've had some great success with it. It's kind of fun to eat your own dog food, as they say. So,
They say that?
yeah.
I haven't heard that expression.
I believe it was a Google expression, and it's
Okay.
just testing out your own product, seeing
Oh,
if your product actually works, if the things that you're putting out there are actually working for you. And so, being the
yeah.
marketing manager here, I get to see if we're actually giving people the right advice and if we're building the right tools.
Yeah.
And I mean, so far we've done pretty well.
Excellent. That's great. Yeah. And do you share the results of, some of the things that you're doing on your blog too?
We haven't yet,
Yeah.
but we have an educational platform coming
Yeah.
out very soon, which we've been working on nonstop. That's going to have a lot more case studies and information about how we've done. I love that bloggers put out their income reports, and it'd be great if we could figure out a way to incorporate that into our educational hub as well.
Well, even if you just had the statistics of, different repins and things like
Hmm.
that, I would find that really interesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And,
Seeing if it's actually working.
the big questions are on promoted pins too. And, to be able to follow somebody who shared those kind of stats, that would be so cool.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay, good.
You're helping me out already.
Good. This is a one of those calls that are good for both of us. I like that.
A little bit of symbiosis going. I like
Yes,
it.
symbiosis. That's right. So I love to ask people about their interest in food, because mostly, the prime audience for this podcast are food bloggers. And I'm just curious, do you have any interest in food?
Oh, I love eating it. I am personally a horrific cook, but my boyfriend's an excellent cook. So it's fun when he's able to like just come up with something on the spot and it tastes delicious.
Yes.
And like seeing all the recipes on Pinterest. I have a huge recipes board that I pin to all the time. And, maybe someday I'll figure out how to cook and actually make them. But for now, it's just like there are some really genius cooks out there. And I love that Pinterest is getting them in front of people. Like, you don't have to be a Food Network star to have a big following. It's awesome.
It's so true. I love that, actually, that people can create their own platforms. And you don't have to have 10 million people to be successful. You can even have a couple 100,000 and you're going to be doing great. So one of the main reasons I asked you to join me today is because a lot of people end up having questions about, Pinterest in particular. And I love that you talked about Instagram, and maybe we can save a few minutes at the end to talk about that. But I think the main focus would be on using Tailwind for Pinterest. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how Tailwind does that for, as far as the scheduling process.
So when you first sign up for Tailwind, you will see that we actually provide you with a schedule as sort of a jumping off point. And the way that we do that is we look at your repins, when they're happening, if there's any sort of pattern to when people are interacting with your pins, and build your schedule based off of that interaction. And as time goes on, we will suggest more time slots based on, like, maybe you started pinning at a different time and it's really working for you, so we'll suggest a few time slots around there. And it just allows you to see your pins go out at the right time to the right audience, and you can track those analytics within the platform as well.
There's also some really cool features, like, I can go through a period and I can schedule a whole bunch of pins, with some of them being mine as well. And then I can just hit, I don't remember the name of the button. It's like a scramble button and it scrambles them all up.
Yeah, the shuffle button.
The shuffle button. I love that shuffle button.
Yeah. So you can, if you have a blog post that you just put up and you want to schedule some pins from it, you can select those, schedule them to a bunch of boards, and hit the shuffle button. And so they won't go out all in a row. They'll go out staggered. Or you can use interval pinning, which allows you to have them go out in intervals. So it's not a random selection. You can have them go out every 6 hours, every 12 hours, every 3 days. You can pick whatever that interval is.
And the reason some people might be wondering, why is this important? And I think it's really important on your Pinterest profile that when a visitor comes, that they look at your most recent pins and they don't see the same pin 50 times in a row.
Exactly.
Or even 10 times in a row. So if you can hit that shuffle button, and like you say, maybe you've pinned the same things to 10 boards, but it spaces it out so it doesn't you don't have the same pin being repeated over and over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a bad user experience to land on someone's profile and just see oh, well, they really think highly of their new blog post because they just pinned it 17 times.
Yes, exactly. I think that's especially true in I don't know if you've seen the new changes that Pinterest made on mobile, but it really shows up because the very first section is most recent pins.
Yeah, it's interesting. They really changed a lot on the app.
I love it. It's kind of made me fall back in love with Pinterest again.
More streamlined, for sure.
Well, yeah, and I guess it gives it more of an Instagram feel to me. And so now I feel inspired to make sure that when people come, they see some beautiful pins right there as my most recent pin. So that's kind of my goal with that.
Yeah, it is sort of like Instagram. That's a good point.
Yeah, so I'm liking that a whole lot. So I thought I could give you, I know probably a lot of people are using Tailwind in different ways, and I was wondering if we could talk about that. If you have some tips that you've seen, not like naming anybody in particular, but some tips that you've seen overall. But first I thought we could start with me. I thought I could tell you how I use Tailwind and Pinterest, because I have 122,000 followers on Pinterest. I mean, I was kind of lucky that I got started early on with Pinterest and gained a lot of followers. I just fell in love with Pinterest. I used it all the time, and I was not using it to promote my own content. I was mostly pinning just stuff that I loved.
Yeah, curating that content that people also fell in love with.
Yes, exactly. So I probably had an 80-20 proportion of my content versus other people's content, or no, the other way around, other people's content versus my own. And
Sure.
and slowly and surely I've changed that over the years. But of course, then Pinterest changed their algorithm, and I feel like things are different now. But let me just tell you what I do. So let's say I create a new blog post today, and it's my black bean brownies. So I will then use my tool, which is I have Suomi on my site, which is a sharing tool, and I will actually use that to schedule it to one of the pins that I own. Like I've got a board called Be My Sweets, and so I'll pin it to that. And then I go into Pinterest and I open up that pin and I use Tailwind to pin it to every appropriate board. And then I use the interval to select one day at a time. And then I schedule that to go out. So every day over the next month or so, I'm going to have that going out to a bunch of different group boards. The reason I like that is because I can do several recipes at a time. And so, yes, it may be my content that's being repeated, but it's not the same pen being repeated.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, that's
what
a
I
good
have
point.
is filler is other scheduled content. Like I'll go to Food Gawker or something like that, and I'll use Tailwind to schedule a bunch of pins, and those come in actually in between. And then I do some pins that are actually live off of Pinterest as well. It sounds like a lot, but it doesn't take that much time.
Yeah, especially with the schedule button, because you can just select a whole bunch of images at once.
Yes.
And then go back and shuffle them all up so they're not all in a row.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
So
I
tell me,
think
what's right or wrong about that process?
I think you're doing it all right. That
Oh, good.
sounds good to me.
I get a gold star?
Yes, definitely.
Woohoo.
Another thing that I've seen bloggers do that I really love is having different images so they can test, like, maybe this text overlay performs better than just the image by itself, or a little bit of tasteful branding, and testing to see what their followers are actually engaging with.
Yeah.
And same can be said for the descriptions too, because Pinterest is a social platform, but is also very, very much a search engine. And so you have to be cognizant of those SEO terms within Pinterest. And a great way to find those is taking your brownies, for example, just typing in brownies into Pinterest and then looking at the guided search results up at the top.
Okay.
And so you can see those are the things that are trending. Those are the things that people are interested in related to brownies. So it might be chocolate, healthy, vegan, whatever is trending at that time. And, switching up some of your descriptions to fit into those search terms better.
Oh, I like that. So then basically you would want to do that as you're writing your post, right? Because that's basically the alt tag. You would write your alt tag based on what you're seeing as those guided search results.
Yeah, that'd be a very smart idea.
Because that way, whether you're pinning it or somebody else is pinning it, you know that those search terms are in that picture.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we've noticed with a lot of pinners is they're so concerned with the pins going onto their profile that they forget to think about the pins that are being created from their site, not by them.
Yes.
And so rather than having a really rich description about their black bean brownies, they just have blackbean-brownies.png as the alt tag, and that's what's showing up on Pinterest.
Yes. To be honest, sometimes when I'm at a site and I maybe I'm just there for some other reason and I see a picture I really like, and this sounds terrible, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I will start to pin it, and if they don't have very descriptive terms, I just don't even pin it. I just go on.
Well, it's more work for you.
Yes, it is.
Got to make it easy.
Right. So I do think it's really important how you name your pictures, like you say, so that you know what people are, pinning. So I love that idea of kind of like A/B testing, any particular blog post to see how one, like the one with words in it versus one that doesn't have words in it, or tower pins or whatever, to see how they do, comparatively.
Yeah, it's a great way to build up that engagement.
So here's my question is, do you see people doing that, like, they maybe split up their group boards that they're pinning to so that they're not pinning the same link to the same boards? Is that correct?
Yeah, and if you have a really active group board, then it matters a little bit less because someone that lands on that board isn't just going to see your pins directly next to each other, but definitely break them up some so you're not just spamming those poor group boards with all of your different styles of pins.
If you have 5 photos from one post, you don't want to hit them
Hmm.
all on the same group board.
Although it will look better if you have 5 different photos pointing back to the same post than having 5 of the exact same photos. And
Yes.
that's another way to sort of leverage those group boards is having those different photos. So it
Oh, that,
doesn't exactly look like the same blog post, but it is. And they don't need to know that.
that's right. Exactly. Very good. So, do you see any other kind of best practices as far as using Tailwind or scheduling pins?
Well, one thing that we're coming out with is an iPhone app, and we're just waiting on the word from Apple to have it live. And that will allow our users to be on the go. If they see something great on Safari, they'll be able to pin it directly from there. They'll be able to schedule the pin directly from Safari and from the Pinterest app. And so I know a lot of people are super busy, always on the go.
Yeah.
And one of the best things that I can suggest, once this is live, of course, is using the extension within the iPhone app to schedule those pins. So you don't even have to worry about it when you're not at your computer and you see something amazing.
Well, and it just helps busy people optimize their time. So, you may be taking your kid to the orthodontist and you have to sit for
Hmm.
an hour in the waiting room. And so you can schedule your pins that way. That's great.
Might as well get something done.
Yeah, exactly. I actually got to test that tool a little bit, and it is very nice. I really liked it a lot.
I'm so excited for it.
Yes, I bet.
Can't
I bet
wait.
you. Can you say when it's going to come out, or
Unfortunately, I can't. We
okay?
really are just,
Yes.
it's depending on Apple.
And they're probably on their own time frame, right?
Oh, they're a big old company testing lots and lots of apps. So
Yeah.
hopefully soon. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, can't say.
I love it. Okay, cool. So, let's talk a little bit about how it works as far as repinning and
Hmm.
getting the analytics back on that because I have heard a lot of people talking about, that Tailwind actually counts repins differently, and I'm curious if you could talk to that at all.
Yeah, I can't really speak to the way that other products do it, but the way that we do it is we look at all of your pins that you've pinned and count those repins. So if you've deleted pins in the past, those are still going to show up. And we actually don't suggest deleting pins. It's it's
Yeah.
a point of contention, I know, within the blogger world right now.
Yes, a lot of people think you should.
Hmm.
I'm
And
glad to hear that because it's something else I don't have to do.
oh, exactly. And if you have those pins that you don't think are performing, you should try updating the description instead of deleting it. Because the shelf life of pins on Pinterest is so much longer than the shelf life of pins on, or sorry, not pins, but posts on Facebook or Twitter. A study that we've looked at in the past showed that Facebook posts last about 80 minutes, tweets are 5 to 25 minutes, and then a Pinterest post is at least a week. It can be years old and still be showing up in those search results and getting those repins way, way, way after you pin it. And I've had content that's gone viral 2 years after I pinned it.
How? And that's something that you didn't make that happen, right? I mean, if it's 2 years after you've done it, did you
Hmm.
change any keywords on it or it just happened?
It just happened for
Ah,
me personally, but I know we have some users that updated the keyword, updated the blog post that it was linking to, and those pins just took off years later.
oh,
And even
well,
if they didn't pin it,
yeah,
just
that's great.
having that content out there is so important,
Yeah,
even if
that's
it's
in
old.
other words, if you gave up on a pin and you deleted it, then you've obviously eliminated that as a potential to go, viral.
Exactly. Yeah, you're doing yourself no favors.
And you're spending valuable time that you could be pinning other things.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess some people are getting close to that limit of how many total pins they can have, and maybe it would be worthwhile for them.
I didn't realize there's a limit on Pinterest. Has that been reached?
Yes, again, it's maybe one of those urban legends, but I'm pretty sure I heard that, I think there's a limit of like, it's either 100,000 or 200,000 pins. I mean, it's such a high number that I don't think a lot of people are going to have to worry about it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I believe there is a limit on how many total pins that you can reach.
If I'll have to ask around about that, but I'm
Yes.
thinking even if that is true, maybe you could just, turn some of those boards that you don't pin to as much into private boards, and
Yes.
those will be gone.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
A good question. Let's talk about photos for a second, because I think
Sure.
it's something that a lot of bloggers spend a lot of time on. And, there's some big debate on whether you should do tower pins or, you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? The ones where you've got several photos stacked on top of another. Or I've seen another trend lately where people are really cropped in tightly on the shot. I'm just curious
Mm-hmm.
if you could talk for a second about, have you seen any trends of particular photos doing better than others?
The most important thing I would say with the photos is having it be high quality so that they don't look pixelated, and also having them be portrait style rather than landscape style. So definitely want them to have they'll be longer than they are wide, and not saving them as a higher file type. So you want them to be at least, I believe it's 715 pixels wide. But definitely, I like the tower pin idea. I really enjoy, and people seem to as well. It's sort of the infographic style, where you have a bunch of information on one pin, which allows people to learn everything that they want to right there, and then click through if they're interested. So, big fan of tower pins.
Yeah, I think especially if they're well done. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm a big fan of them to do them just to do them. But if,
Mm-hmm.
in other words, oh, everybody's doing tower pins, so I have to do them. But I think
Sure.
if you do them well, like if, especially if they tell a story, that's the only
Mm-hmm.
ones that I really like, is if they make sense.
How-tos are the best for
Yes,
that.
yes. So it's showing the different steps of the recipe and then the final recipe or something like that.
Yes,
But if
and
it's the
that's
same
great.
shot over and over, that drives me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Come
I guess
on.
yeah.
You know?
I'll go
But
back on my word a little bit and say, as long as you have a good story to tell, or
yes.
a nice list or how-tos, then
Yeah.
yes, tower pins.
And what about text on the photo? Is that help or not?
Text overlay is really great for providing context because people can be lazy. Like, let's just be honest, people can be very lazy, and so they won't always read your description.
Yes.
They will look at what's on top of the photo. So as long as it's not overpowering, or you can't really tell what's going on, yes, text overlays are great.
Okay, good. Those are some great questions answered right there. I think that provides a lot of value for people.
Good.
So
Good.
what about, let's talk about if you know of a certain percentage of your own content you should be pinning versus other people's. I mean, I think that's a common question across
Mhm.
all social media channels. Do you think there's some optimal number for Pinterest?
Not necessarily. Definitely don't only pin your own content. That's not going to win you any favors. And it's a really good idea to get in with other bloggers and sort of share each other's content and have that symbiosis built up where they're going to help share your pins, you're going to help share their pins. So you all are getting the benefit of having your pins out there without having to put all of them on your own, all of your own pins on your own boards over and over and over again. Um, an old rule of thumb, like if you are just getting started and you have no idea where to start, 70-30, 70% other people's content, 30% yours, and then build up from there, your own content, once you understand what works for you and also what content your audience is engaging with, even if it's not yours.
Very good. And if that is any help to people, not only can you look on Pinterest, they have analytics, but Tailwind has analytics as well,
Mm-hmm.
and you can kind of get in there and look around and see what of your content is doing really well, and that can be a big help.
Yes, definitely. Our pin inspector is great for that. And on Pinterest, I really like their interests. They show you what your audience is actually pinning about and what
Yes,
they're
and
interested in.
I've also participated in this theory that if you see a pin of your own that is doing really well, to get in there and to pin it some more. Do you think that's
Mm-hmm.
true?
Yeah, definitely. And again, you can even try optimizing another pin for the same blog post based on what's working, and see if you can even up those numbers a little bit more, and see if you can replicate the same results on a different blog post. So maybe you use text overlay and it worked really well. Why not do it again?
I love that. I actually have heard some strategies too. I haven't tried this myself, but I recently listened to a podcast interview where this woman said she would pin, rather than pinning back to her website, she would pin to her YouTube channel where there would be a video explaining basically about that recipe. Or I think actually she was a fitness blogger. I thought that was a really interesting strategy to build up maybe your Pinterest following using, or, your other channels, except, not just going back to your website.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Especially you can pin from YouTube, but they're always going to be those landscape pins, which isn't ideal. So yeah, absolutely create a pin that's the right aspect ratio for your YouTube channel. So that way you get the best of both worlds.
Yes, very good. And it's kind of like maximizing the effort that you're doing on a bunch of different channels. That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, do you know if there's any kind of algorithm within Pinterest that somehow favors people who pin more widely? Like, let's say they have a diverse group of group boards.
I'm not positive about their algorithms when it comes to that. I do know that the smart feed does favor people who pin a variety of content, and also the smart feed is a very complicated beast because it at once looks at your website and how trusted your website is. It also looks at what the actual pinner is interested in. So, for example, I was talking to one of my coworkers earlier who got engaged not long ago, and since she's been pinning wedding things, all of her feed is just different wedding ideas.
Yeah.
So that they realize what's going on in your life and start showing you more content like that, which makes it a little bit harder for bloggers to get onto the news feed, since it's based partially on time, partially on what the pinner is interested in, partially on how trusted your website is. I'm not sure if I answered the question there. I got a little bit lost in my own.
No, that's really good information. I think that's very helpful. And I have to be honest, from a user perspective, I don't really like that as much, just because I feel like, I may pin a few things and then it seems like when I go there, that's all that I see. And I don't know, I don't really like that so much, but I guess that's what works.
It'll be ironed out over time.
Yeah.
I think they have work to do, of course, but I think that they are definitely on the right direction. And it's pretty amazing that you can capture people in the right moment that they need exactly that pin. Because I'm not engaged, so it makes no sense to show me wedding dresses. Whereas my coworker, of course, that's all she wants to see.
Yes. So what would make it, what would help a blogger get into that trusted blog category if they don't know that they're in that already? Like, if they made sure they were, they had registered their site with Pinterest as a business site or a business pinner, does that help?
That definitely helps. So getting your site verified on Pinterest will always help. And it helps you get access to the analytics from Pinterest as well. Yes. Having a site that's not too overloaded with ads too. Ads are fine. Ads make the world go round. But as long as it's not slowing down your website. And they also look at the traffic to your website. So even, getting a couple of promoted pins up, paying $5 a day just to drive traffic to your site, Pinterest, the smart feed's going to realize, like, oh, people are actually interested in what's going on this website, and show those pins a bit more.
I think that's a great point. So promoted pins, I think, is a topic that a lot of people have had questions on. And so it sounds like I'm hearing you say, if you spend a little bit, invested a little bit of money and did a few promoted pins, and that and resulted in greater traffic to your site, that would then help Pinterest see you as a more trustworthy site.
Yes, as long as you're doing it within your categories. So if you're putting out food-related content, you don't want to have tattoos as one of your keywords, even though it's a huge keyword on Pinterest.
Okay, good to know. Maybe I'll have to make some tattoo cookies or something.
Maybe then it'll be relevant, of course. But yeah, just as long as you're not trying to game the system that way. They will find you out.
They will, huh?
Yep. We've tested it.
So within your category, as long as you're, getting a, decent amount of traffic related to that, then It's interesting because I think a lot of people do use Pinterest for traffic. So it some way starts to feel like a circular reference, in Excel where, you're kind of caught in this. If you're not in the circle of getting all the traffic and doing well on Pinterest, then you're going to have a hard time doing well on Pinterest if you're not getting the traffic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, those two things are so closely related. It's crazy. And I know
Yes.
most of the bloggers that we talk to, even when they just first get started on Pinterest, they realize that it quickly becomes one of their biggest drivers of traffic.
Yes.
Because that's what the site is there for. You're supposed to click through.
Does Pinterest look at any, at all towards the value of the people who are following you or the number of people who are following you?
It is much less about the follower count and more about your engagement.
Right.
And so if you have 2 million followers, but 1.7 million of them are just zombies that don't do anything with your pins, then it's worth so much less than if you have 600 followers and all 600 are really engaged with your content.
I think that's a really good point. It kind of goes to, I know, there are a lot of services that can help you grow your followers, particularly in Instagram. I don't know if that happens in Pinterest as well, but I imagine it's probably there. And you have to think about whether that's really valuable or not.
Yeah, much less so on Pinterest.
Yeah. It may look impressive, but it doesn't really help if they're not engaged.
Yeah. It's a vanity metric at this point.
I think that's another interesting point, and that is, I feel like before the smart feed, I could pin some things that I would probably I could get a couple thousand repins and when something really went well. And I miss those days because I feel like now it's like, it's not that high anymore.
We've heard that a whole lot, and I know Pinterest has heard that a whole lot too, but they're sort of trying to find the balance between the experience for the person going through the feed and the experience for the marketers out there.
Yeah.
Finding that balance is really difficult. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes.
Oh, I can't imagine. It's got to be, tough to figure that out. So do you see any difference between contributing, like pinning something to a board that is a solo board, one that you own and exclusively pin to, versus pinning to, let's say you own a board that is a group board? I mean, I guess there's kind of three different levels if you think about it. There's the solo board that you own, and then there's the board that you own that's a group board, and then there's a group board that you don't own. Mm-hmm. Do you see any difference in pinning to the three of those?
I think group boards are super valuable if they are well curated and if they are well targeted to what you're pinning. So I've seen the boards that are everything on Pinterest, and it's just thousands of people pinning thousands of pins every hour. Those you can go ahead and leave. Those are not quality traffic builders. Those are it's essentially spam on Pinterest. But there are also really amazing food blogger boards that have just a few different people who are running it and pinning to it, pinning their content, pinning other people's content, and it drives traffic for everyone. It's amazing for that. And there's also a lot to be said for your individual boards because you have complete control over the description and the name, which can help with search engine optimization. So while the group boards, if you own them, you have control over that. But if you don't, you're just sort of at the mercy of whoever is running it. And if they have hashtag food blogger all over the place, that's not going to help you as much as if you have your own board that you can pin to and control all of that.
That's a very good point. I feel like when I get a group board invitation, I have several criteria that I look for. Obviously it's nice if it's a board that has a lot of followers. That may be the first thing that I look at. But then I look actually at the pins that are on that board. And if there's very little engagement, very few, not a lot of repin counts or things like that, then I kind of feel like that's a pretty questionable board to be a part of.
It's a very good point. Yeah. Followers are not everything. I would definitely suggest looking at the repins.
Yep. And especially if a board has sometimes there'll be 1,000 people contributing to that board. I don't know that I trust that. I would rather see a smaller group of people, and especially if those are people that I recognize, that helps. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So that's some criteria for people if they're thinking about, group boards and whether or not to accept invitations or, how to get on a group board. Those are some criteria you should be looking for.
And you can always leave a group board too.
Mm.
If it doesn't work out, if you aren't seeing the traffic, if it's flooding your own feed and you're annoyed with it, you can leave it and it's not a big deal.
Oh, I have definitely done that when I participated in a group board and then I end up with my feed just full of
Mm-hmm.
that. That drives me crazy. So
Oh,
I
I
have
have
left.
to.
Yes. So what about your own solo boards then? Should you be contributing a lot? I mean, I heard somebody say once, there could be an optimal number and that actually a lower count of boards is probably better.
I think it really depends on
Okay.
what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
One of the beautiful things about Pinterest and the boards is you get to hyper target all of your content. And so you could, for a food blogger, you could have specifically just a chocolate desserts board, a fruit desserts board, a cheesecake desserts
Yes.
board.
Yes.
And that allows you to be found for those specific things so much easier than having just a big desserts board. But a big desserts board you can pin more content to. So it's sort of a
Right.
double-edged sword there.
So you could have cookies and you could have holiday cookies. And then, what I do in situations like that is I would move my holiday cookies up to the top during the holidays.
Yes. It's an
So
excellent, excellent point.
yeah, I actually do like moving. I early on before the smart feed, I always felt like every now and then shuffling my boards around helped. I would see a growth spurt after that, but I don't know if it's true now.
I'm sure it marginally helps.
Yes. Sometimes that's what we're after is the marginal growth.
Yep.
Yes.
Pushing that needle every little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So, let's see. I think that's maybe the other questions I have. Do you have any other feedback for people using Tailwind and Pinterest?
If they are interested in, well, one thing I guess I should bring up first is we are beta testing a product called Content Discovery, which allows you to search for content based on keyword or based on your boards. So we'll look at all of the different pins that you have on your board, analyze that content, and show you new content related to that board that you can pin directly or schedule directly from the dashboard. It's a really great tool. We need beta testers for it.
Okay, I
And
love the
so,
sound of that because that is sometimes the struggle that I go through is finding, because of the smart feed, I feel like I'm seeing. In fact, the other day, I kid you not. I mean, I don't know why I kind of have this ability to remember what things I have pinned and what I haven't. But for some reason, I clicked on 4 or 5 and I didn't, every single one of them I had already pinned. So I just find it interesting that was in my smart feed. So,
that is interesting.
finding the right original content or, good quality content to repin that you want to pin and have it in your schedule to be pinned is hard sometimes. I'll go to things like Food Gawker and that feels time consuming because I have to open up each tab but yeah, that would be great to have a tool like that where it could feed to me a bunch of high quality content that I could repin.
Yeah, and you can even create your own feed within it. So you can add Food Gawker to that feed, and we'll bring in the images for you to just schedule directly from there.
Excellent.
It's great. It is such a good tool. So if anyone is interested in that, send me an email. It's Melissa, MELISSA, at tailwindapp.com.
I love it. Very good. So I highly recommend. I might be sending an email, Melissa.
Yeah, Marley, we'll definitely get you set up.
Good. So what's coming up next for Tailwind? Anything that you can share? Oh, wait a minute. We have to back up because you were going to talk about Instagram. We were going to talk about that.
Oh, yes.
So how does the Instagram work with Tailwind? Because I don't currently use that.
Right now, we're testing it with our enterprise clients, but coming, fingers crossed this quarter, we will have a small business option for it. And so that includes hashtag tracking. It's optimizing your own content. You can even see a map of where in the world hashtags are being used the most, which is awesome. It's really cool to see that like the fashion hashtag is used in America, of course, but also all over Europe. And I love it. It's so neat. And you can find new followers that way, great new accounts. We have one hashtag that we're we have pulling content that's puppies, and it's the cutest thing ever.
Oh.
Just anytime I'm having a bad day, I just go look at puppies. It's
Oh.
great.
That's not great.
So that will be coming soon. It's a really great product. Hopefully put it in people's hands before too long.
I see, but it doesn't have like the schedule of that everybody's, scrambling
No,
for. That's an Instagram thing, though.
Yeah, they're pretty against that, unfortunately.
It's interesting because as much as I would love to be able to schedule, I also see the reasons why they don't do that. And in some ways, I kind of like that they don't.
Yeah, they want Instagram to be about being in the moment.
Yes.
And it's hard to schedule a moment ahead of time.
Exactly. And if you did a bunch of that, then it would probably be less, I don't know, in the moment, as you say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's what they're looking for.
Okay, now I can ask you this question. Anything, coming up for a tailwind that you can share?
We have the mobile app, we have Instagram, content discovery, which people can already get. And we are updating our entire publisher suite. So there's going to be lots of new things coming soon. And it's going to be even better than it was in the past. So much more coming. We'll have drag and drop and being able to repurpose your old content. All kinds of things.
Oh, that's excellent. And
we have a very busy quarter.
It sounds like more to come on your blog as well.
Yes. Yeah. We'll actually be posting content soon. It'll be great.
Awesome. And I think do you have a free trial that you provide for people?
We do. And it's actually not time-based. It's based on how many pins you schedule. So you can schedule 100 pins for free. And if that takes you 15 minutes, cool. If that takes you 2 years, you still have that free trial.
Ah, that's great. Okay, I have just a few quick questions here at the end of the interview to talk with you about. So what's one food item you can't live without?
Cheese. That's easy.
Any particular kind of cheese or all cheese?
Oh, man. I am a sucker for blue cheese, and I know I'm a weirdo for that, but weird. I can just
no, I'm kidding.
Eat it. Eat it right out of the little tube. So
do
good.
You really? You put it on a cracker? Gross. How do you eat that?
Just stab it with a fork, put it in my mouth. It's so good.
Eat it straight.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the favorite app on your phone? And you can't say Tailwind.
Ooh. I really love Snapchat.
Ah, good.
That's a fun one. I use that one a whole lot.
Do you use that like to communicate with friends and things like that, or do you use it to follow certain brands?
Both, and I really like the Discover portion. It's like having all sorts of fun magazines just right on my phone. I read that at night, and if something funny happens during the day, I can just send a quick picture to my friends. Don't have to take up room on their phone.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Is it something you think Tailwind will be using eventually?
I'm not sure. It's something we've talked about in the past, but we're sort of interested to see where they're going as a company before we invest more time and energy into it.
Oh, I can imagine. Yes. Okay, so do you have any time for TV at all? And if so, do you have a favorite show you could share?
I am a Netflix junkie.
Me too, lately. So what's your favorite show?
Don't have cable, but I actually just finished Jessica Jones on Netflix.
Ooh, I don't know that one.
It's a Marvel show, actually.
Interesting.
Which is really interesting. But it's not your typical superhero type of show. It's kind of dark and funny and brooding and intense and really good. I would definitely recommend it.
Okay, cool. How about, did you watch the Making a Murderer show?
I did.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if do you have another hour to talk about that?
I could talk with you about for an hour for sure. Oh my gosh. What a show, huh?
Oh, it was intense. Yeah.
I have to admit, when we turned it on the first time, I turned it off. I thought, I don't want to watch this. And then everybody kept talking about it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give it another chance. And then it's just like, it takes over your brain. I can't stop watching it.
It sucks you in. It's crazy. And then after I finished it, I kept reading about the trial. And, there's so much to it.
And there's so much still going on about it. So, it's, I don't want to give too much away, but it is a great show. It's worth watching.
Yeah. Other than just watch it.
Yes.
You need to.
Okay. So how can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Melmeg, MELMEGG. And you can shoot me an email, melissa@tailwindapp.com.
Thanks to Melissa Megginson for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. If you were busy running around and couldn't jot down something important, don't worry. We took the notes for you. Just head on over to choppedcon.com where you can learn more about today's show. I hope you're loving the Chopped Podcast. I know your emails and your comments really mean a lot. It also means a lot if you can share about the Chopped Podcast on social media. So use @ChoppedCon on Twitter or Instagram or even Facebook. You inspire me, so I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks for listening and have a great week.